Hey everybody, I'm Jacob Castro and welcome to another video here on Jacob's Aquarium. I'm sitting here today in my house with my roommate, Ronald Dewar. Hey Ron, how you doing?
Hello.
You doing good?
I'm doing great.
You excited?
Very excited.
He's excited because today we're going to give his tank a little bit of a makeover. We're actually going to be adding some sand, the same type of sand that I have in the pond, silica sand. It's the stuff they use for sandblasting and things like that. Really cheap, you can get it at any home improvement store. So if you guys are thinking about doing the same thing after you see this video, now you know where to get it. So Ron, tell me about your tank. So like the size, fish, everything.
Well, Jacob, it's a 50 to 60 gallon tank. I think it's a 60. I've had it for about almost 4 years now. I love freshwater fish, preferably African cichlids, and I've gone through many of them. I usually clean my tank once a month, maybe a little bit longer depending on condition. Right now I have the blue gravel in there, which has been nice for a long time, but it seems to get dirty rather quick. So Jacob suggested that we try some of the sand, and that's what we're going to do today.
Yeah, and I suggested the sand because if you guys don't know, cichlids in their natural environment, whether it's Lake Malawi, Lake Victoria, a bunch of different lakes in Africa, the substrate in those lakes is mostly just sand, and cichlids prefer that because it's like their natural environment, and they also will create little mountains and stuff for like to make like kind of like a home. You know, they've actually done that in your tank, and it kind of pisses you off all the time because
cichlids are big hole diggers. They love moving rocks everywhere.
They love to redecorate his tank all the time.
Right.
He'll clean his tank, and then a week later it'd be like, what the hell happened?
Right. I'll have a mountain of rock in front of my glass.
So tell me about like what kind of filters are you using for this tank? Are they? They're the Aqua Clear power filters, and I think they're the Model 40s, right?
They're the 70s,
or
actually.
the 70s, and you have two of them.
And I have two.
All right, so really good filtration on this tank.
All right, I also have a power head for better circulation, oxygen. And as you can see, I have somewhat a lot of decoration, but not too much because I actually like seeing the fish. And a little bit of plants in there. And I also have an air stone in there for more oxygen.
All right, so pretty much the ideal environment for cichlids. They get plenty of good filtration. The filters have plenty of place for beneficial plenty of surface area for beneficial bacteria to collect, things like that. You guys know what I'm talking about pretty much. So last question before we get started, because I'm just curious. I'm really curious with everybody's story about how they got into the hobby. What motivated you to get into the fish keeping hobby?
Well, about 5 years ago, I was talking to my sister and I was telling her, how much I would love to have a fish tank. Well, my mother and her decided one Christmas to buy me a fish tank. So they bought me a 40-gallon bow tank, which I was in shock. I loved it, and ever since then, which I still have, by the way, and that just led me from one tank to another tank to another tank. I have actually 3 tanks that I have: 10-gallon, 40, and the 60.
And it seems like that's typical with everybody that joins. Like once you get one tank, you can't stop there, right? It becomes an addiction. It's like there's always a new fish out there. There's always a new, type of equipment for your tank that you can use. It's really like an addiction.
Right. In my 10-gallon tank, I basically use that for babies. My fish seem to really love to breed, so I don't want to leave the babies in the big tank because obviously there'll be snacks for the other fish. And then in my 40-gallon tank, I actually have Grammies and a pretty good sized bala shark.
The bala shark is beautiful. And it's right next to the door, so every time I come home from work or leave or whatever, I get a chance to look at it. And I've only been living with Ron for about 6 months, I think, and I think in that time I've seen that thing grow at least a half inch.
Or more than that.
It's crazy. But this bala shark is beautiful. Yeah, you also have 2 other 10-gallon tanks where you keep your baby cichlids as well, right?
Right. Well, one is not mine. One is our other roommates. Yeah. And that's it. The 10-gallon, the 40-gallon, and my 60.
And then I got mine in the garage, my planet tank, which a lot of you guys have been asking for an update video on that tank, and I will be filming that pretty soon, so don't worry about that.
And that's a very beautiful tank too.
Yeah, all live plants.
I'm jealous.
And Yeah, which, by the way, my channel is mostly about planet tanks, so I thought it'd be cool actually today making this video because we're venturing over to just the typical freshwater portion of the hobby. You know, no live plants or dirt or anything like that, but just the traditional aquarium fish and stuff like that. I thought it'd be a cool change up on the channel as well. So, all right, so we're gonna get started. So basically, like I said, we're just gonna be adding some sand to Ron's tank. We gotta wash it, get it all nice and clean to be put into the tank, and I'm sure it's gonna look really, really nice. So, are you excited, Ron?
I'm excited, ready to get started.
Okay, so let's get started. First, we gotta wash the sand, so let's go do that right now. All right, so the first thing on the agenda is to clean the sand, and this is the number one most important thing you want to do if you're planning on using silica sand, because this stuff is incredibly dusty. Unfortunately, you can't just get it out of the bag and dump it in your tank because your tank will be cloudy for weeks, if not longer. So what you do to clean sand is very, very simple. You just pretty much put some in a 5-gallon bucket and then stick the hose, the garden hose in there, and just move it around. And as the sand moves around, all of the dust and debris that's in the sand will float to the top and then float out of the bucket and I guess into your grass if you're cleaning your sand on your lawn like I am. So it's very, very simple. With silica sand, you may have to, repeat this process of what I just said pretty much multiple times because this stuff takes a fair bit amount of washes to get it clean. Some people will even go as far as to fill the bucket with water and move the sand around with their hand and dump out the water each time the bucket gets full. So you can do it that way, but I mean, I pretty much do it both ways, but I mean, it really doesn't matter. But either way, you're going to have to do that multiple times because the stuff is really dusty and you really need to make sure it's cleaned very, very well, or else, like I said, your tank will be cloudy for a very, very long time. So yeah, that's the only downside to silica sand, is that it's just incredibly dusty. So while I was outside cleaning the sand, Ron was back inside the house getting the tank ready for the sand. And I should have also mentioned that we were pretty much also going to be performing a service on this tank as well, because it's definitely due for it. It hasn't been serviced in about a month or so, so it was time to clean out the filters and give the fish a nice water change. Just the normal things you pretty much do when you service a tank. I'm sure you guys already know all the basics. I don't really need to go over that. But we also had to remove a lot of the equipment as well, more than you would if you're just performing a normal service on this tank, simply because we needed access to the top of the aquarium to put the sand in. The sand is very, very heavy, so we couldn't just dump it in, just in any open area in the tank. The whole bucket would have to go inside because it's just so heavy, and it's not possible to just, hold the bucket over the tank while the sand comes out. So we had to take off all the external equipment and then also take out the decorations. And we're putting the decorations all in one bucket because we're actually going to be soaking the decorations in a mixture of just plain tap water, warm tap water that is, and bleach to get rid of all the algae and things like that that accumulate on decorations. Which, by the way, Ron has never done this to his decorations. It was actually something that I recommended just because I've done this many, many times. When I used to work at an aquarium store and we used to service people's tanks, this is how we would clean decorations, by soaking them in bleach, in a mixture of bleach and water overnight. So I recommended that to Ron, and that's what he's going to do. That's where all the decorations are being put into one bucket, and that should really help get rid of all the stuff that's accumulated on them. As you can see, the fake plants have a fair bit amount of algae on them, black algae that is, and it doesn't really look too attractive. So we're going to try to brighten those plants up a bit with some bleach and water, and we're going to let them soak for 24 hours. And so after we got out all of the decorations, it was now time to siphon out some water. And I know this can be where you guys will start to question, well, Jacob, this is gonna be the death of this tank. What are you doing? Okay, so here's the thing, okay? Yes, siphoning out a lot of water may promote a tank to recycle again, okay? Here's the thing though, there is a lot of beneficial bacteria in both of the filters. Ron has 2 of them on this tank. Not typical with a tank like this. Most people will just have one power filter, but of course, having double the amount of filtration gives you more surface area for beneficial bacteria, things like that. So there's plenty of beneficial bacteria in the filters to keep the tank going. So removing a bunch of water would not really disturb the whole, or would not promote the tank to recycle, that much. Another thing you guys might be saying is, well, you're removing all the gravel. There's probably a lot of beneficial bacteria in there as well. Why are you doing that? Okay, well, we're doing that because we're going to be adding sand into the tank, and it really would not look that great having a mixture of white sand and blue gravel. It just would be defeating the purpose of, redecorating this tank. We want this tank to just look, or just to have sand in it, no other type of substrate. So, in order to do this, we have to remove all the gravel. And while that may remove a good amount of beneficial bacteria, it's a risk that we're going to take. But we're also going to be adding some other products once we fill the tank back up with water, like CChem, stability, and some other beneficial bacteria as well, just to, kind of prevent the tank from recycling. So, while it is a risk removing all the substrate, this is just what you got to do if you want to add sand to an existing aquarium. This is why I always tell people, if you're starting a tank, make sure you start it, the way you're going to want it for a long time, because if you have to make changes like this later down the road, you're going to run into the risk of recycling a tank, or, some other issue, which can then be the result of, of many fish deaths down the road, just because of the cycling process and how the levels spike and everything during that process, and how some fish just can't handle that. So now Ron has taken the power filters off the tank, and he's going to give those a nice cleaning as well. The power filters are, relatively easy to clean. You just have to get all the crud and stuff that builds up inside of them out, and make sure the impeller is nice and clean. This is one of the things I really don't like about power filters is, they're just such a pain to clean. I mean, they are cheap. They're pretty affordable. They get the job done, but when it comes time to cleaning, I mean, look what you got to do. It's a little bit of a hassle, in my opinion. That's why I prefer wet dry filters, and any other type of filter that really requires little maintenance, because when you have to, clean your filters like this, whether it be a canister filter, power filter, whatever, having to remove the entire unit from the tank and bring it to a sink or a bucket, whatever, it's just a lot of work. And with the wet dry filter, my favorite filter and preferred filter, I should actually say, cleaning that filter is simply a matter of just replacing the filter sock and making sure the pump is in good working order. And you really don't have to do that too often. So wet dry filters are just so easy to maintain. So for those of you out there that are thinking about starting an aquarium, if you have the budget, try using a wet dry filter. If you're starting a planted tank, well, a wet dry filter may be out of the question just because it promotes too much oxygen. You can find out more about why you shouldn't use a wet dry filter with a planted tank more on the internet, on planted tank forums and stuff. They talk a lot about it there. But a wet dry filter, nonetheless, is just a really easy to maintain filter, much more easier than power filters, canister filters, or things like that. So the filters were cleaned now, and we're going to be adding the sand now. As you can see, I'm doing that. And here's what I was talking about. That's why Ron had to take off all the equipment from the top of the tank, because I was literally going to put the bucket inside of the tank to get the sand out. For one thing, dumping the sand into the tank, letting the bucket rest on the rim of the top of the tank would just make water splash way too much. And it's just not possible. With wet sand, it's like concrete stuck inside of a bucket. It's really hard to get out. So you got to get some water in there to get it out properly. And putting the entire bucket in the tank really is the only way, in my opinion. So, and as you can see, even though I did wash the sand many, many times, and I thought I did a great job of washing the sand, it still made the water fairly cloudy. So I should also mention, that even though you wash silica sand, or even if you wash silica sand many, many times, and it looks crystal clear in the bucket after you have it washed, it could still make your tank a little bit cloudy, but that cloudiness won't last as long as it would if you didn't clean the sand. So your tank could still possibly be cloudy after adding, washed silica sand to your tank, but the cloudiness will clear up within 2 to 3 days, depending on what type of filtration system you have. If you have a really good filtration system with good mechanical filtration, it'll get all that dust out of your aquarium's water fairly quickly. If you have a wet dry filter with a micron sock, even better. That'll probably take care of it within under 24 hours. As I've noticed when I've used wet dry filters with aquariums. But yeah, just keep that in mind. It can still make your tank a little bit cloudy, but it's completely normal. As many times as you wash silica sand, you can never get it 100% clean. It's just one of those things where you're going to get some cloudiness, but of course, washing it does prevent the cloudiness from lingering in your tank for many, many weeks. All right, and now that the tank has the silica sand in it, which by the way, we put about maybe an inch and a half layer of silica sand in the tank, it's time to fill it back up. So we just put in plain tap water or actually hose water, garden hose water, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to also add some of the dechlorinators and things like that to make the water safe for the fish once the tank is filled up. Okay, so the power filters have also been cleaned as well, so they're ready to get going on this tank. And yeah, pretty much we're just going to fill the tank back up with water and then go from there. And here you can see Ron using a net to kind of clean up all the loose debris that's inside the tank. This is actually something that's really cool about silica sand. It's such a compact substrate. A lot of the debris in your aquarium really doesn't settle inside of it, so it pretty much just floats on top, which makes it really easy to keep your tank clean, because you can just use a net and create a little bit of a current in your tank, moving the net around, and the debris will float right off the sand and into your net. Alright, so the tank is pretty much finished. We got the sand in, it's filled up with water, filters are running, they've been cleaned. The overall exterior of the tank has been cleaned. We scrubbed the glass and everything. So this tank is pretty much serviced. So all we need to do is put the glass top back on and then put the light fixture back over the tank and let the tank run for about 2 to 3 days. And after that time, the tank should be nice and cleared up and it should look beautiful. So are you guys ready for the big reveal? With the magic of video editing, you're not going to have to wait 2 to 3 days. You'll be able to see Ron's redecorated cichlid tank right now. And here it is. Wow. I thought about how everything was going to go down with this tank, redesigning it, and, well, not redesigning it, but just redecorating it with sand. And I really didn't think it would make a big difference, but wow, was I wrong. The tank looks incredibly different now. And the fish, the decorations, everything just stands out a lot more with this plain white, beautiful silica sand in this tank. The colors on the fish definitely pop a lot more. The colors on the plants pop a lot more. It doesn't seem so just one-dimensional now. It seems more, 3D like. It seemed like with the blue gravel, everything was just, so flat. I mean, if you know what I'm talking about. When I say flat, I mean just nothing popped in the tank, but now that you have this white sand in here, it just seems like everything has come alive. Everything is looking so 3D like, everything pops out, and the fish seem to really love it. I think they haven't made any changes to the scenery yet, but knowing cichlids, they probably will. But I think they're going to be very happy because this sand is going to mimic their natural environment. And I think it's going to make the fish really, really happy and give them a great home. Thank you everybody so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. Please stay tuned for more awesome videos here on Jacob's Aquarium. And also don't forget, if you're in the market for aquarium plants, visit jacobsaquarium.com. And also don't forget to visit me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. All my social media links will be in the description below. Have fun with your tanks, everybody, and I'll see you next time.